you see
welcome.
me?
Yes, thank you for coming online. And I'm still just greeting people. But can you tell us how you're doing? I know you're in New York right now. New York is incredibly hard hit. So our hearts go out to you and your family, to the residents of New York, especially New York City.
Yes, well, Maria and I both live on Long Island, so we are detached from the very dense urban areas where the cases are predominantly reported, but we're just as hard hit in some areas on Long Island. There are 2 million people who live on the island, so we are pretty much on a shelter in place order and just staying in our homes, trying to manage homeschooling, help me walk around the block. You should be very proud of me. Today I was playing deck hockey in the driveway just to get my 10-year-old out of the house, and just, he said I was really good at first try. So you do whatever you can just to get through very, very difficult times. Yes, but it's such an honor to be here. I was just texting Maria to see if she is available to join us. Originally, she said she would, so I'm just going to quickly text her.
And you know, it's very casual. So if she wants to pop in and pop out, that's fine. This link though, you could send this link to her, but we're actually going to have, there are already people on YouTube that are commenting. Michelle Van Balcom says, thank you for persevering. Luisa says, hi there. Valentina is saying, hi, everyone. So that's really nice that they're over there chatting on YouTube and they're going to be interacting and watching you all. I'm going to turn off and go behind the scenes. Tan, if you would please introduce our fantastic panel. Thank you so much, Brett and Katie and Andrea, for being here. But I'll let you guys take it away so that I can go do behind the scenes. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you all.
Before I introduce the panel, if people are on YouTube, can you just tell us where you're coming from? And that would be great. And who you are, where you're coming from, and so we can start the community chat there. Today, it's our pleasure to have Andrea here again, Dr. Andrea Honigsfeld. You know her for her resources online about teacher collaboration, and there's a future book coming out, I know, about another thing. You can talk about that related to teacher collaboration. I won't reveal it yet. And as our field is moving towards teacher collaboration, we look towards Andrea and Maria to really guide us. There's not wherever I go, Andrea, even in Vietnam, there are people pull out your books. Like the brown book, and then the blue book, the black book. And they say, oh yes, this. And so this is new to us. This shift has been new to us, and you really have been guiding that shift and highlighting what we can do. And so we are so appreciative of you giving up your time when conferences have been canceled, and you're doing that. And so Brett and Katie are here to guide the conversation, to host the conversation. So I know that people are already saying that they're online. Maria's from New Jersey. I see Chris is from Tennessee. There's Didi from California, and then Alabama. So in the chat, would you tell us if you have read Andrea's book, if you have been to any of her workshop or conferences, and tell us like how has she really, Maria and Andrea, have really impacted your life. So I will let you continue the conversation, and thank you again for giving teachers an opportunity to learn from you without being physically in the same space. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to quickly ask Carol, if you don't mind emailing Maria or sending again the link for her. She doesn't seem to be able to find it. So if there is one way or another that you could reach out to her, she is eager to get on. She was texting me. So
okay, you know what?
The background.
Yes, I will send it to you direct message on Twitter. And if you can just take it and send it on to her from there, would that work?
I think she's here. She made it.
How are you? You know what? We are all stepping up in tech. I mean, we are all just persevering. Thank you, Maria, for joining us.
You're so welcome. I just couldn't find the link.
Well, that's the thing. Just don't stop. Just don't stop trying. Okay, I'm just so happy and thrilled. I'm going to turn it over to Brett Gosselin right now. And actually, I had told Brett that I would introduce Maria and Andrea, but if Katie Topple, I know you know these two presenters like the back of your hand. If you would mind introducing them, and then Brett can take over from there. Thank you.
All right. We are so fortunate to have with us Andrea Honigsfeld and Maria Dove. And what I would like to say about them is that I would give these two wonderful people credit for transforming the experience I have as an English language development specialist. My day-to-day work experience is entirely transformed because of the work that you have put forth in the world that I've been fortunate enough to read. And it's incredible the difference between being that isolated language teacher who gets kids but doesn't interact with colleagues to the language specialist that's fully integrated with teams. And I think that's just such a wonderful thing. So we're also thankful for your knowledge and expertise. And we're very thankful to have you joining us today.
Thank you so much, Katie.
Thank you.
All right, then I'm going to go ahead and, I'm going to ask Brett to go ahead and unmute your mic. Brett, do you need me to help you with that?
There we go.
Okay.
No, I get it.
Okay. So if you want to just go ahead, Brett, you had some fantastic questions this week on the slow chat. If people didn't know, there is a slow chat at the hashtag VirtuEL all week about these two great presenters. And Brett is going to lead a conversation with us about that. Go ahead. And Brett, thank you. I just want to introduce Brett. Brett is an esteemed colleague, and I'm actually going to be on a panel with him also at the Beam conference. Would you mind telling the folks a little bit about yourself, Brett, before you get started?
Well, first, I do want to say, it looks like I am having some Zoom issues. So if I ping in and out, I will be back in a second. So, talk amongst yourselves if that happens.
That's why we have two. That's why we have you and Katie. We're good.
Right. So you'll just carry on. But yeah, I've been an EL educator for about 14 years. I work at the district level in Dallas.
That's okay.
Yes. I think we lost you in Dallas, right? When did we lose you?
Oh, so yeah, I'm out in the country, and our internet, as much as we try to update it, it's having issues.
It's no worries. You know what? If you get frozen, Katie will pick up from there, and we can just have it's just a casual conversation. And you're not the only one in the world going through that right now. So y'all go ahead.
I can't hear Brett. Was he talking? I couldn't hear.
No, it seems like we're having a little bit of technical difficulties, Brett. So you know what, if you don't mind, if Katie would just start the conversation, I'll go ahead and help out as well, because we have your questions. Brett has some fantastic questions in the slow chat. So we will go ahead and just start from there. And Brett, you could type in, you're welcome to jump in, and we'll just see if your internet holds up a little bit, okay? Okay, so, but we do appreciate all the work that Brett did this week. He did a ton of work, and he has been, and still through Friday, he's leading us in a slow chat about your work from the 2019 keynote that you guys gave. And I would like, if Katie, if you feel comfortable, Katie, addressing that and starting, because we've been talking about your keynote for a year, so I know she won't have any problem stepping in. Go ahead, Miss Topple, Dr. Topple, sorry.
Did you say you want me to talk about the keynote or the questions?
Either one.
Okay.
We have these gals here, and everybody I'm sure wouldn't mind hearing either way.
I want to start by sharing something about the keynote. One of the things that Andrea and Maria did in their keynote was reference Zaretta Hammond's work about culturally responsive teaching, and they added a gamify component. And they had participants who were watching complete a tic-tac-toe board with different things that they had discussed. and then highlight the 3 that each person would choose to really focus on. And I want to share that my tic-tac-toe board is on my whiteboard right by my desk at school. Wow. And I just went back and did a Twitter search and found a picture of it. And I look back at those things, and I'm so happy to see that the things that I highlighted that I really wanted to work on really have been aspects of co-teaching, our collaboration and co-teaching, that have evolved and moved forward this year. So just really, really fun to have that game, but also to kind of, set goals and set sights on where in our work we want to move forward, because it's really cool to see when we are shifting and moving more towards those collaborative practices. I also love how they talk about the importance of celebrating and how they reflected on their unique partnership as they're continuing to work together, and kind of the synergy that they have as partners, because right now our people are hugely important to our sanity and our mental health and our well-being, and having those our people, our circle, to text and to Zoom with and to be in collaboration with at this very just challenging and kind of pivotal time in our teaching careers. This is going to be a time that we'll never forget, whether we're at the beginning of our teaching career or in the middle or at the end. What's happening now is just unprecedented, and it's so stressful. And the people that we collaborate with are the people that we're really leaning on right now. And so those relationships that you have helped us to foster and develop are truly our saving grace at this point in time. So just your message about having those people is so important, and also celebrating them. I would encourage anybody who has fantastic teammates and people to put those words of praise really out there. Tell them, text them, send them messages, send them hearts, emoji kisses, emoji hugs, whatever it is, because it's really super important at this time that we all work together, because we are better together, and nobody has the answers right now. So we all need to kind of crowdsource and figure out what to do, but we need to rely on each other at this point in time. So I think your work is just really, it speaks to that. And that's the message that you send in everything that you publish and tweet. And so we're lucky to have those words of encouragement. I'm going to go ahead and start with Brett's questions, because when it comes to collaboration and co-teaching, we recognize that we're not all there. There are kind of some hesitations, maybe some barriers. And so the question that Brett wanted to start with is, when we experience colleagues that are hesitant or these systems are not in place, what would you recommend, or what would you say to teachers to encourage them to get started or to really embrace collaboration?
I think you mentioned it partially, that relationships are so absolutely critical. I'm not sure, Maria, if you wanted to say the same thing, but go ahead. We often finish each other's sentences. We piggyback off of each other.
We do, but I had a different idea. I was thinking that sometimes when colleagues are reluctant to participate in collaboration, we take it personally. And I think it's so very important not to take these, as offenses to oneself, but to think about why the person might be reluctant and to approach that person maybe differently. One way we try to get people on board is if you have an issue or concern, to go to that colleague and ask them for support and advice. So this way, it's a very gentle way in asking a colleague to help you. Usually people are pretty quick to offer their help. They sometimes just don't want to be exposed, I think, and I at times, and some people do feel vulnerable at different times in their careers for a number of reasons. So I think we have to just respect that.
Yet, as you mentioned, Katie, and we mentioned that in our keynote, relationships, even before the virus crisis that we're living through, have been very important. Now they are exponentially more important. So one small silver lining we might see in this terrible, unthinkable context that we live in is that more and more teachers, educators realize that we need to rely on each other. We need to share. The amount of sharing that's going on social media, it's unprecedented. You did not see this before, that people are so willing and ready to curate material, to create material, to put it out there, to seek help and to ask for help, as Maria said, but at the same time also offer help and offer that encouraging emoji or smile or a meme or your own personal story as a homeschooling mom or dad, how you're surviving day to day, juggling it all. So all of a sudden we're showing our vulnerabilities even more. We're showing our humanities even more, and it's bringing us together. So
Andrea, it reminds me of something you often say, that, you know, a good starting point for collaboration is when teachers are embarking on a new curriculum or a new initiative in the district. And this idea of distance learning is so new for everyone. This is the new initiative. So I think everyone feels that they're starting from square one, and therefore there are no experts here. So I think the willingness to collaborate is really springing from that as well.
I'm so glad you reminded me of that, because indeed, years ago, when we first embarked on offering support to districts, we often said, don't start more than one thing at a time, just do co-teaching by itself. And then of course, lo and behold, most districts don't listen to us because, you know, there are just multiple competing demands on everybody's time. And often multiple initiatives were rolled out together. And that's when we discovered that when the entire school building was learning the one-on-one technology together, that was in one school district, or another school district, it was reciprocal teaching, or so not a major initiative, but just one strategy, one approach that every teacher had to master. All of a sudden, that became the common denominator, that we're all learning this together, we're all in it together, and we need to share and figure this out together. So it certainly is very similar, even though not by choice or not by design, but what we're experiencing with remote learning, distance learning, at-home learning, all these different names that are out there for what we are experiencing is pretty much new to everybody.
I love how you brought up the idea of vulnerability too, because that's huge. In order to, I've been reading Brene Brown, and that's huge in her work, is vulnerability really breeds trust.
Yes.
And so with y'all's experience, I think I'm stable, by the way.
Yes.
But with y'all's experience with networking, because you're saying, which I thought was very powerful, that we're all kind of on the level playing field right now, with many of us doing this is all brand new. But y'all do have a lot of experience with networking and building relationships in a capacity that a lot of teachers are being thrust into right now. And having to learn, in addition to delivering their content in a digital format, also collaborating in a digital format. So what would be some things that you would suggest or advice that you would give to teachers that are in a situation now where now I've got to collaborate and I've got to build relationships, even though I'm not physically with people that I normally would have collaborated with, and maintain that relational aspect of it?
I think one aspect right now, what I'm hearing from teachers is they are struggling to manage their time. And I think that in order for collaboration to work within this new framework, the new world that we're in right now, is that you really have to, like at any time in our careers, you have to set aside time for it. And I know teachers are being stretched, those who are at home. One technology teacher told me yesterday that she was starting from 7 a.m. in the morning, and she's still getting phone calls and text messages till 11 p.m. at night. So these, and what's great is that, yes, they're relying on her expertise, the teachers that are working in her district, but yet it's kind of overwhelming her and not allowing her to take care of the needs that are in the home right now as well. So I think that that the time factor is still one that is at issue, even with this new technology that we're using for collaboration.
And since you asked about collaboration approaches or protocols or templates maybe that we often recommend, I'd like to circle back to that idea of having a week at a glance planning happening, because the day-to-day planning, what Maria said with the time management, is not going to be doable. It's not going to be happening. But if we have an overarching goal for the week, language goals, language and literacy goals, core content goals, and more important than ever, maybe social emotional goals for our students as well. So adding yet another level of integration to our work is to ensure the not just the physical, but emotional and mental well-being of our students as well. So the week at a glance kind of planning, and less is more. Less is really more. And I could say that now as Mrs. H, the mom who is here with kids, who is just, you know, the amount of work that could be assigned to the kids, as opposed to what kind of teaching is really happening. We have to be mindful of how we can be intentional and purposeful when we co-plan and design meaningful learning activities for our students.
I know some teachers are telling me that they need their co-partner more than ever, that this, that trying to figure this out on their own has been much more stressful. So they're so grateful that they already have these established partnerships to rely on. Even if both of them aren't sure, they feel that they can work it out together.
I've also heard teachers doing more divide and conquer than ever before. That was one of our other strategies that we often recommended, especially in a digital context. You're not going to be co-delivering instruction the same way that you might have been co-teaching. But if you co-plan, even if you use, let's say, Zoom technology, we're hearing teachers breaking out into the breakout rooms and emulating co-teaching to some degree. But if that is not possible, dividing and conquering by deciding who does what major learning experience during the week, who designs the differentiated scaffolded versions of those learning experiences. And we have to work smarter rather than harder in this context.
And I think that's what was most powerful that I took away from your keynote, as well as your book. You know, for example, our department, we did actually a book study with your collaboration for ELLs last year, and it was what we took from it was kind of what y'all are speaking to is the mindset of the collaboration. Is kind of what we're seeing play out in front of us right now. Is like the example that you shared with that technology expert. I'm thinking of what y'all talked about with ownership, into where that ownership may not be equally dispersed because that technology expert is feeling that, you know, I'm owning this aspect of it to the extent that I'm being relied upon, where the capacity for the teacher then to therefore go and implement may not quite be balanced just yet. And so I'm thinking along those lines of how can we build capacity? How can we start seeing the realities that are emerging that we couldn't have, you know, intended or planned for, that are kind of popping up, like that situation? And how can we start, I guess, heading it off at the pass and be able to start equipping some of these people that are in situations to where I've got too much of the ownership. I'm taking on too much of this responsibility to really carry this team. You know, there's a lot of teachers that I'm seeing that have been the technology experts all along. And when we were in face-to-face scenarios, that was great. It was neat. You knew some good stuff. And if we wanted to know about Kahoot, we could ask you. But now they're kind of bearing the burden of their teams because they own they're the ones that have that knowledge, and it hasn't really been dispersed. And so I'm thinking of those kind of situations. How can we start supporting that capacity building quickly? so that we're not seeing more of the situation where we've got somebody having too much of the ownership and not being able to pass things on in a way that's healthy for everyone.
Wow, I mean, the idea of capacity building is so very important with so many aspects of teaching. And I think that we often don't do enough of that. You know, very frequently when Andrea and I have our participants at our workshops or our keynotes, they're people who are really immersed in the field of teaching English learners. And we often say, you know, try to go back to your districts and do a turnkey. And very often that's not something that occurs. So we end up preaching to the choir, so to speak. So the capacity building is just so vital. And especially now with the new format, trying to reach all of our students with you know, distance learning, it's just so critical that we start with the capacity building as well, and opportunities for that.
So what advice would you give somebody who is in that situation where it is kind of unbalanced and they're recognizing, I do need to skirt some of this off and some of this responsibility and build capacity, but I don't really know how. And I don't know how to have that conversation because it could be hard. It is vulnerable. I don't want to tell somebody, hey, I want you to do more, because it could communicate the message that I'm saying you're not doing your job, and I don't want to say that. So how would you help that person who feels, I do need to build capacity, but I don't really know where to begin?
Well, one way would be, and my advice to this young woman who was telling me this yesterday, was during one of my courses that I was teaching on Zoom. And I said, well, number one, you really have to identify what your hours are. So here are the hours I'm going to be available to you. Number two, I did also suggest the possibility of having her own Zoom meetings. Instead of having these one-on-one conversations, she could possibly identify different aspects of the day where she was going to have a Zoom meeting about a specific piece of technology. This way she could have more people at the same time asking questions about similar, you know, issues they were having. And therefore, another way to build capacity would be to have these group meetings.
Another way that I have seen before the coronavirus crisis, as well as emerging online, for teachers to support each other and build capacity is by doing intervisitations. Before, when we were back in the classroom, many schools began initiating pineapple charts, informal, non-threatening, non-evaluative peer visitations, allowing teachers to showcase what they're good at, as well as ed camps or different venues that teachers and educators around the country initiated just simply to learn from each other. So tapping into that eagerness, or book clubs. Oh, of course, we can't forget about book clubs and other ways, Twitter chats, other ways that teachers have already expressed tremendous interest in learning from each other. So that is capacity building. Maria and I always like to say, look at what's happening already. What kind of structural or grassroots efforts or any kinds of framework is there already? Is there a PLC movement going? Is there a common planning period? Is there maybe an extended day once a week, as it is in New York City, where teachers are contractually expected to stay late? Or some other school districts, teachers are expected to arrive at 7:45, but children are not arriving until 8:30. So looking for times and opportunities, and then structuring some kind of informal, non-threatening, non-evaluative learning opportunities during that time for capacity building.
And I will piggyback on what you mentioned about the power of the book studies and the shared professional learning. As we have been, you know, participating in distance learning, we've actually been better able to do some of those things and learn together. Normally it was difficult to find a physical space for us to always be able to meet in, but our department actually is participating in a book study, Breaking Down the Wall. And so that has been tremendous for us, because that is a way that we're able to then get a common vision about something we're learning together, but then really go out and implement it, which I think is really powerful, because then it's not one person or driving it or saying we need to do this. We've collectively had a learning experience together, and then can go forth motivated as a group to do something about it. And we can make an action plan together based off of our learning together, rather than having a directive that we're going to follow. So I think that's very powerful. And we've seen the fruits of that ourselves, being able to connect and learn together through distance the way that we have. And I do also want to see if at this point, Katie has anything that she wants to ask about what we've been talking about, because I've been kind of asking a lot the last few times here, but I know that she's had a lot of experiences with your stuff as well. And I'm curious what she has to say.
Unmute. The one thing that I wanted to ask about, and it's not necessarily in the context of our distance learning right now, but more kind of back in the classroom. When you have the culture of the school is not entirely ready to embrace collaboration, but you have pockets, like connecting back to Nancy Motley, you have those pockets where it's happening. What are some kind of baby steps that you could recommend? Because one of the things we now ask in interviews to prospective teachers joining the staff is, what do you think about co-teaching? And of course, people say, oh yeah, I mean, that's great, or I would do that, but they don't necessarily understand what it is, or they don't know. They've heard good, they've heard not so good, and they don't know if they're ready to commit, because they truly don't have a visual picture of what does it even look like. And so what small steps or what actions could be put in place so that somebody who's kind of on the fence or thinking, I don't even understand what that would be like, for them to kind of get the visual?
So one approach that we have seen successfully implemented is when it's a pilot program. When it's either a pilot in a single school, a single grade level, a single classroom. So as you mentioned, the pockets of excellence, or just even the pockets of trying this out, giving it all, being a very willing partner, and taking a huge risk and taking a chance on this practice. And then documenting the successes and the challenges. We really have to have honest conversations, and often difficult conversations, about what works and what does not work. So when teachers initially are allowed or invited to experience collaboration and co-teaching in such a non-threatening, non-evaluative pilot format, then they're going, and they volunteer, they will be reporting back and sharing what works for them and what does not. And then before you scale up, you listen to these practitioners or these participants so that we could learn from them, going back to the capacity building as well.
Shifting culture is one in which is a very difficult thing to do. Andrea and I often say that we can walk into any school and in 5 minutes, we'll tell you a lot about your school culture, just by the way we are greeted at the door, our experience in the main office. It tells a lot. I remember walking into schools, and everywhere I went, someone said good morning to me. Never saw me before in my life. And it was a wonderful experience, and it just says a lot about the culture. I think what's so very important is to get the leadership team on board with just defining what the vision is for our English learners, and how we go about accomplishing that vision can be done in a collaborative way. I think also teachers often feel that they're consistently told what they're doing wrong, either by their the powers that be, the media, etc. I think what schools need to do as well is to lift teachers up, showcase teachers, make sure that people know that they're just not one-dimensional beings, like, oh, so-and-so is a first grade teacher, or you know, the other person over there, she's just a teacher of English learners. So I think we need to talk about the various talents and really raise up our teachers as you know, in a very personal way. If we want people to make personal connections, we have to truly find out who they are as people.
Absolutely.
And I think that's I think that goes back to what you had mentioned before about the fear and the exposure that I think that addresses that piece of it. And I think that's really what is at the heart of it, is if you tell somebody that they're going to co-teach or that they're going to collaborate. You know, for me, I had spent, I don't know, the first 7 years of my career in isolation, and I had no team. And I was under the impression that that was a good thing, you know? And so, because I didn't have to answer really to anybody, and nobody was going to bother me. And when I did actually have to come out of that show, I learned very quickly how much I really needed a team prior to that. But I think that's really what it is there's that fear that if somebody sees this, if somebody comes in and sees what I'm doing or has a part in it, one of us will have to emerge as the stronger or the more talented or the better, if it's a co-teaching situation, or if it's a matter of opening my room to somebody just coming to see. It's hard for us to sometimes accept the fact that it really is beneficial for me. It's a growing experience for everyone, because we do kind of, our practices are very personal. We hold them very deeply to who we are, and we identify ourselves by how effective we are as teachers, and we're really apprehensive to kind of open that up because we're afraid we're not going to measure up. And so I think what you had said about celebrating in the talents of the teachers and recognizing what they're doing and beginning the conversation that way is so powerful, and being able to kind of break down those fears, because I really think that's a big hindrance for a lot of people in being able to open themselves up to that authentic collaboration.
Absolutely. And earlier I mentioned to you, and I don't think I finished that thought, that in the classroom situation, Maria and I have been supporting a lot of intervisitations using an appreciative inquiry protocol, which includes showering each other with compliments, looking only for the positive in the practice, and allowing the two co-teachers to be in a fishbowl, and again, telling each other what they have never said, something positive that they've never had a chance to say to each other. And often these protocols, these meetings are highly emotional. There are lots of laughter. There are also tears. People get very become open about their feelings and the struggles that they went through, yet how much they appreciate each other. So I'm happy to tell you that we're hearing about online co-teaching partnerships transferring these intervisitations and appreciative inquiry practices into the online contexts by visiting each other's virtual classrooms, their Google classrooms, whatever platforms are being used, and complementing each other, as well as sharing ideas and taking some good ideas from each other. That's totally an unanticipated outcome of this. We would have never thought that this is going to be the way to go, but here we are. Many of our practices that we talked about a year ago during the VirtuEL keynote are truly transferable to this online environment as well.
The other cool thing that I experience as someone who's in 9 different classrooms throughout the week is the capacity building by seeing a strength of one teacher that I can then share across teams. For example, in the kindergarten team I work with, one of the teachers shines more as someone who's more adventurous with technology and has been using iPads for instruction longer. And so I will watch how she models something with her class and then steal it and use it to then model with the other teachers who may be a little bit more hesitant. And it's such a beautiful process of, yeah, I didn't know it either, but I got to experience it in one classroom and then share it. And it's kind of that just, it's a way for, even if the teachers themselves can't be in each other's classrooms, I get to be in them and then kind of bring things with me and share across grade level teams as well. I mean, just today and yesterday, I met with kindergarten and I met with first grade across Zoom. And then from one team, I said, oh, well, this is what the other team talked about. And just, it facilitates so much more cross sharing of information that classroom teachers or content teachers don't necessarily get to access because they're with their own groups of children throughout the day. So those systems of observing are so great, but when they can't happen, the visiting teachers kind of have this special way of being able to beg, borrow, and steal and disperse. And I think that in and of itself really builds capacity too.
Absolutely. As well as continuity. If you think about, you saw something really great going on in kindergarten, and then some of those same strategies or approaches are now transferred to first grade and second grade. Our most vulnerable students, such as English learners or students from low SES or students who do not have continuous education, which many of our students are now going to have that as a result of inequities in technology and other resources. So if you think about it, that type of collaboration and intervisitation or cross pollination that you were describing allows teachers to provide a more continuous, consistent instructional experience for all students.
I truly wish more teachers had the experience you just shared, Katie. And it's just such a privilege to be in someone else's class, to actually watch them do their instructional magic and pick up things that, you know, you're sometimes just in awe of the way people are able to explain things or demonstrate something, or just their routines in general, and to be able to share that with others. I always feel so very privileged visiting others' classes and sharing what I learned just from that. It would just, and Andrea keeps using the word intervisitation, and what a powerful practice that would be if, you know, administrators would allow other teachers to visit each other frequently.
Another powerful idea that I recently heard through a Twitter conversation, I think, is from an international school. Actually, they have been doing this kind of remote learning for quite some time, is to try to stop teaching for one day every 2 weeks, giving ourselves a break, giving the kids a break, and refreshing our skills just for collaboration, for catching up on some maybe new technology or ways of delivering instruction, especially if we're going to be in this for the long haul. I absolutely love that idea. If we could just recognize that formal conferences or professional development and many other things are just not happening right now. But what if we actually allowed our teachers to learn from each other? What if every 2 weeks there was a day, or even just half a day, giving kids a break, giving parents a break? They're home anyway. Everybody's homeschooling. Everybody's giving some alternate ideas, such as, I don't know, watching some National Geographic videos. I've been doing that every other day with my kids because we just need to do something that is really educational and meaningful and giving us a little bit of a break. So food for thought. Anybody who's listening, let us know if you are implementing collaborative professional learning opportunities once every 2 weeks. How do you maximize collaboration? How do you build capacity? How do you find or charter new pathways for teacher collaboration? We would love to hear about that.
That is such a powerful idea. And we have the structures, like you said, we have the structures for that now more than ever to be able to. And I know already that there are teachers, innovators that are among us that would love and welcome the opportunity to be able to share. and have that opportunity to work with their colleagues and just, like you said, take a break. And this is what's happened so far. And how do we make sense of this together? Because I think that's something that's concerning me, is if we don't put that kind of intention in place, we are going to feel so isolated from one another and from our practices. And that myopathy can really get to you at an emotional level, psychological level. I mean, it really can start to have an impact on, yes, the way that we deliver instruction, but just also the way that we just live our lives. So being able to come to other people and go, oh my gosh, you had the same thing happen, like I'm not alone, I think would be more than just powerful. I think would be necessary. I think that as we do this, that would be something that, yes, if you're listening, that would be an incredible thing to start implementing. It would be so healthy for all of us.
It seems like a good system for co-reflection in this process, but kind of stepping it up to allow more time for that piece of the cycle, because that really is huge. And when we're in kind of the midst of teaching, I know I run from one class to the next class to the next class, and the lesson is, there's not time right then and there after a lesson to turn to my co-teacher and say, hey, how do you think that went? There's 25 to 30 other little people in the classroom, and that's where our attention is. And so we do need those structured times to debrief and to kind of check in with each other. And that's where those kind of moments of vulnerability come, when you can admit to your co-teacher that, that didn't go well, or I just think I didn't do that effectively, or that lesson totally derailed. What are we going to do next time? But those moments are really, really powerful to kind of move the work forward and keep those relationships strong.
Friends, as much as I don't want to do this, it's about time to wrap up. But you know what? I wondered if you guys noticed that we've had some amazing presenters in VirtuEL 17, VirtuEL 18, VirtuEL 19. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but you four were here from the very beginning. You were there that first year. And then, of course, we really appreciate you, Andrea and Maria, for sticking with us all these years and agreeing to be our keynotes last year. It was very exciting, but you're kind of all VirtuEL royalty. I mean, you are. We're just so grateful. You're the epitome. I know, Maria, you were saying how people are sharing now, and it's unprecedented. And I love it for them, because I know what it feels like when you share and someone uses what you're sharing, and you think about how many students that's affecting. So just you here, and of course everyone out on YouTube was watching, and everyone in the PLN, the ripple effects of what you've done this evening and what you've done for us over the years are just immeasurable, all four of you. And I just can't thank you enough. And Tan, I know, feels the same. So I just want to thank you for, and also I've been taking screenshots of this chat over on YouTube. It's like crazy wonderful. You'll be so inspired when you see it. So I'll make sure that you four get to see that chat. I'll figure out how to download it. We're all rising to learn how to do things.
Well, and I have to take a moment to say to you, Carol, that we talked about the importance of praising colleagues and saying those things. And I've always said this about you, is that you are somebody who can make anybody, whether they're a novice teacher or an expert, feel like they are just a shining star, because you have such just an aura of positivity. And that's something that I think you excel in. And if you're looking for, a role model of how to be that positivity, look to Carol, because she is always lifting other people up and retweeting and just spreading, all words of positivity about other people. So
I am not in an emotional state to hear this right now. None of us are. Okay.
True. I've said it before. I will say it again.
I love you so much, Katie, and all of you. But I'm just gonna get emotional, and I appreciate you so much. I appreciate everybody so much. And if I give off that aura, I'm honored. because I really truly feel like the brand new novice teacher has so much that we can learn, and everyone in between, all the way up to the expert that's been doing it for so long. And I know you guys feel the same way, so I'm honored for that. Thank you. All right. Hey, did you guys hear about VirtuEL 2020?
When
no, you
it's
didn't?
gonna be?
Because we haven't announced it yet.
Aw.
Well, we did. We were on the Highest Aspirations podcast this afternoon, and they're supposed to release it this afternoon. So it's out on the airwaves. But we wanted to announce it here. And so we really appreciate you guys, and we hope you're available to be doing some stuff with us on July 18th. We polled the PLN, we put a poll out there and asked what the best time was, and people didn't want it in the very near future, and they didn't want it right when we went back to school. So July 18th is when our keynote speaker has agreed to come on that day, and it's Larry Ferlazzo. He will be our main keynote speaker, and then we'll have, of course, be honored if you guys would join us again, and we'll have some other presenters, and we're super excited about July 18th. You'll be seeing more about that. Everything is going to be at the VirtuEL website. I can share, I don't know, I'm getting like fearless here. I'm going to go ahead and share this. This is pretty much where you go for everything, right? You go right here to this bit.ly, this short link, VirtuEL, and that website is just a Google site. And that usually has, it should have the updates. It should have the updates for the rest of between now and July. And we do really want to thank everyone. We want to thank the folks behind the scene, Valentina, Michelle Shorey, Ton, Irina, McGrath, Brett, thank you so much for stepping up this week. And Katie, thank you guys so much. We appreciate all of you, and the PLN, and Andrea and Maria, we can't thank you enough.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you, everyone. We will see you next time. Stay tuned. We'll see you all on Twitter. Go to the hashtag VirtuEL, and you'll see some people tweeting about this that we're doing here tonight. All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye. I don't know how to end this.